Welcome to my secret channel, Emerald, where I ramble about whatever I feel like in the laziest format possible. It's not analysis, it's just an experience. So if you did not watch the last video, this is a series that I've started where I'm pretty much rambling about my experience as I read a certain magical index New Testament. The last video I talked about, or really rambled about volumes 1 through 4, and this one's going to be 5 through 7. Now, it was originally recorded alongside, in the same session as the last video, but it was just too long, so I made it its own video here. And yeah, before I started, I just want to thank everyone that watched the last one. That I was very surprised by how well that last video did. Thank you to everyone who watched it, liked it, and especially commented. I do genuinely love seeing the notifications that I get on comments on these videos. So if you have anything you want to say on this video, absolutely hit me up and I will get to it. I will respond to it. As a brief reminder, I am still like ranking these as I go. Now the rankings really I should clarify this. The rankings don't mean like one volume is better than another objectively or anything like that. It's just like, I guess, my order of preference. But really, they're very close to each other. I've enjoyed basically every volume, nearly the same. I think basically every volume has been fantastic in its own right so far. But yeah, on the screen I'll put up my current rankings for volumes 1 through 7 again. Honestly, I've all enjoyed to a very similar degree. I think they've all been fantastic. So that's not to put any other volumes down. I just kind of thought it would be fun to kind of see how my opinions change over time. Like maybe I'll look back at this list and I'll just think that I'm like brain dead or something for the ranking. I don't know. But anyways, that's aside the point. Let's go ahead and get into it. So here's a recording from the last session where I talked about volumes 5, 6, and 7. Next is New Testament. I'm going to talk about New Testament 5 and 6 together, because that is the Ichihana Ransai arc. Now, when I looked this up on the wiki or whatever it's called, the fandom wiki or whatever, I noticed that they called it the Ichihana Ran arc rather than the Ichihana Ransai arc, which I'm confused about because they never say Ichihana Ran in the volume. They always say Ichihana Ransai. So if someone could explain that to me, that would be epic. So just very generally, I really liked this arc. I thought there was a lot of crazy things in this arc. Some parts maybe not as interesting, but generally super fun. I want to say that, well, first of all, I love this line. I think it's in volume 5. It says, I just took a screenshot of this. It says, "I think dentistry is the only occupation in Japan where you get praised for making little girls cry." Okay, based. Okay, so Imagine Breaker. I learned a lot about Imagine Breaker because of Olaris's conversation with Toma. I think Imagine Breaker, it's so cool sounding. So basically it's like this reference point for magic gods that want to change the universe like as they see fit. So when a magic god changes the universe, something fundamental. So it's basically like if you wanted to say, I don't know, I forgot what example they used, but let's say if you wanted to make a world where apples don't exist, then you could, but because of that distortion that you're causing, it's very possible that you could end up forgetting that the world ever at one point had apples. Even the magic god that created that could actually forget that they even did that. They could forget that there was a world where apples did exist. And so Imagine Breaker exists so that they can tell what the previous world or previous version of the world was actually like. That is so interesting. It was so, like, I never would have guessed that. Now, to be fair, I don't think you could actually predict that without even you don't even know what a magic god is until New Testament. There's literally no way you could predict this. But I don't know what it is. It just sounds so cool. Moving on from that, I would like to talk a little bit about Thor in this arc. I loved Thor. I had a hard time finding a single scene in this whole arc where I did not like Thor. He has such a fun personality. He has a rather interesting inner conflict. So his inner conflict that's revealed at the end of this arc is that he doesn't know if he wants to gain power so that he can save more people, or if he wants to save more people so he could gain power. And it makes sense with his what his magic is based off of, which is Thor, which is like a war god. And so he's kind of fighting obsessed, even though he still has like a sense of morality. He's a really interesting character and a very fun character. I really like him. Probably one of my favorite male characters in Tuaru. I liked his confrontation with Toma at the burger place or whatever, and they just started getting in this crazy fight. Basically, he was disappointed that Toma was doubting himself and his convictions up to this point. I thought that was pretty nice. Actually, I forgot to mention one thing about Imagine Breaker. I wrote down in my notes, I completely forgot about this, but I said, I theorized that Toma is not the first person to exist with Imagine Breaker. But then I wrote in the notes, but something Oliver says makes me think I could be wrong. Honestly, I don't remember what Oliver said. I don't remember what Oliver said that maybe I think that I was wrong. But yeah, I guess that's a theory of mine, is that Toma's not the first person with Imagine Breaker. Another thing I pointed out in my notes is that I liked the world building about the Ichihana Ronsai. I liked it because it's kind of the opposite of Daihasei, in the sense that Daihasei is marketed more towards like parents and adults to witness espers and new tech and whatnot, whereas Ichihana Ronsai is actually just specifically for the students so they can recruit new students. And they even said that like the quality of their Ichihana Ronsai events and whatnot actually directly influence the amount of recruits they get. So I thought that was just a nice bit of world building. There was also this really cute and funny scene with Mikoto. She went into Toma's school and then met Komoe, and she kept treating her like she was just a little kid or something. I thought that was funny. Also, I think Shokuho like brainwashes a bunch of students to start chasing Mikoto. Funny, good, I like it. Shokuho is great. Mikoto is great. Yeah, let's now get to Fräulein Kreutun. And yep, I looked up how to say it. It is, well, okay, I'm not gonna use the accent. It's like, what, German or something? But Fräulein Kreutun, which I had the hardest time like making myself remember how to pronounce. I stumbled upon her name every single time I read over it. She's quite the case. So basically, she's immortal, kind of, physically speaking. You physically cannot kill her, and she's just been alive for an extremely long time. Her body is essentially like functioning just like hyper optimally, and no one really fully understands what she is. And it's interesting because it goes back to like something akin to like the Salem witch trials, I think. And there's like this priest that keeps trying to prove she is a witch. If you don't know anything about Salem witch trials, what they would do is they would essentially like torture you until you admit that you're a witch. Or they would also, they would say that if you are not a witch, then God will protect you and you won't die from their torture or whatever they do to kill you. But if you do die, then that means you were a witch. So it's so wonderfully ironic that Fräulein Kreutun goes through like hundreds of these trials where they try to kill her over and over and over again. And the only conclusion that they can come to is that she's nothing but a mere human, which is it's so ironic. I love it. That's such witty writing on Cosmic Kamachi's end. Like, just props to Cosmic Kamachi. That was a good one. Fräulein Kreutun, this whole time was very interesting because she was just, I felt bad for her because she'd clearly gone through so much pain throughout her entire life, and it's like she legitimately just did not have any sort of influence over her actions. She was being purely run on like instinct. And to see how this ended with them making like this arc was so weird, man. They made like a replica of Last Order's brain or something, and she ate it and then like converted into something else entirely. They made her a lolly. You know what is so funny about this arc is that two characters were turned into lollies. Fräulein Kreutun and Cendrillon. Both of them were previously not lollies, and now they kind of are lollies. But yeah, back to Fräulein Kreutun. She was a character I ended up feeling a lot of pity for, and I definitely think that was intended. And, you know, I was just happy she got a good ending. Back to Cendrillon. Cendrillon, the weirdest thing to me, honestly, I think this, I don't like to cuss, but this is a bit of an ass pull. One of the weirdest things in this arc is that Marianne, who is involved in this arc, turned Cendrillon into a table with her ability, but she didn't die because that's a part of her ability. And then Toma and Olaris basically turned Cendrillon back into a human. So apparently when Toma and Olaris turned her back into a human, that gave her the ability to just reconstruct. So if her body is like taken apart, she can be, I guess, put back together. It was very strange. Her body parts being mailed to Mugino was just like, and then her being reassembled by Mugino, but she did it incorrectly, and she was smaller than she previously was. That was so funny to me. I felt like I was having a fever dream. But now at this point, she's just like plotting revenge against Gremlin, especially Marianne. There's this really funny scene where, you know, she's speaking in French the whole time, where Mikoto apparently knows French, is translating what Cendrillon is saying to Toma. And that was, honestly, it was really funny. So Toma doesn't tell her that Marianne is actually still alive. Cendrillon actually believes that, or no, it was a misunderstanding. She believed that Toma killed Marianne, so she just had to give up on that. And then Cendrillon said something about owing Toma a huge debt or whatever. And then Mikoto just said, I don't want to translate that. I don't know, that was a funny line. So moving along, let me tell you about the best character, not in Tuaru, but the best character ever written in fiction, Rhinoceros Beetle 5. I had so much fun every single time saying Rhinoceros Beetle 5. This is such a bizarre, this is honestly one of the weirdest things in all of Index. It's just Rhinoceros Beetle 5, just this random beetle going haywire. I guess he was being influenced by, you know, the Agitate Halation project that appears later with like Fremia and Last Order and whatnot. But this whole thing was just surreal. I mean, the fact that Rhinoceros Beetle 5 quite literally becomes Kakine, it's so weird. I was not ready for that. It was so bizarre. I don't know if I actually cared all that much about the Rhinoceros Beetle 5 stuff, but like it's so funny though at the same time. I don't even know how to feel about it. It was so out there that I really honestly don't know what to say about it. Anyways, moving on, I want to talk about the fights, because this volume had the best fights. This volume definitely had the best fights, in my opinion. I enjoyed the fights in this volume so much more than the past volumes. I would say Toma's fight with Lavinia is probably one of my favorite Toma fights. A complaint that I've had about the series is that Toma's fights are usually pretty boring, because it's, hey, yo, let me stick out my right hand and then let me dodge and stuff and then punch you. But this felt like it had more spunk. It had more spunk. Toma felt like he was actually fighting. It didn't feel like he was just sticking out his right hand at some super basic singular attack. It was strategic in a more energetic way, I guess, if I had to describe it. And I really liked that. Now, I know Lavinia could have wiped the floor with him. They've mentioned that Lavinia could move at supersonic speeds with one of her magic spells or whatever. I know she was holding back. I'm aware, but the fight was still fun. But my favorite part was probably just Mikoto. It was pretty short-lived, but Mikoto fighting Brunhild, I'm guessing it's how you say it, Brunhild, something like that, who is a half saint, half Valkyrie or something, which is weird. And then Sylvia, who is like half royal maid, half saint, fighting Thor, who is he the strongest in Gremlin besides Othinus? I think that seems to be the case. So obviously, I just thought the fight choreography was great, especially like Mikoto fighting Brunhild or whatever was super fun, even though it wasn't super long, because it kind of showed, I liked seeing a high-leveled Esper, a level 5 Esper, fighting a Saint, because I was always kind of wondering how that would go down, and it seemed like they were kind of evenly matched. I think Brunhild was like way faster and physically stronger, but Mikoto's ability, she's very tactical with it. She has great like battle wits, and I thought that while it was short-lived, the choreography of that fight was super cool. And I want to say I loved this line that Mikoto said right here. In reference to Toma, you know, doing Toma things, she says during this fight, she says, "I know I can't stop him. No matter how much I don't want him to do anything dangerous, seeing him off with a push to the back is the sign of a good woman." That's based. She's right. She's 100% correct. I'm not going to elaborate any further. I just thought that was an attractive line. Sylvia versus Thor. I had to remind myself what the heck telesma was and phase because I didn't fully know. Essentially, Sylvia uses the powers of the 4 archangels, right? Super cool. She fought in a really bizarre way. I had a hard time comprehending what was actually happening, but it was really cool. And Thor like got crushed by the bridge, but he like picked it up and threw it. He is one strong boy. But yeah, I'm not going to explain the fights in full detail. I would just tell you I liked them and they were cool and epic. I will say probably the worst fight from, I guess, a choreography standpoint was like Accelerator and Mugino versus Kakine. I won't lie, that one was a little disappointing because you have the number 1 and the number 4 fighting the number 2. That should have been extremely cool, but there wasn't really much to it, honestly. I liked the character writing a lot. I never really thought about just how much Mugino could actually relate to Accelerator, you know, with their past in the dark side of Academy City and whatnot. You know, the fact that they've both killed an uncomfortable number of people. I really enjoyed all that character writing. I thought it was great, but I didn't really like the fight too much. And then soon after is when the whole Rhinoceros Beetle 5 thing happens. Hey, best character in the series, Rhinoceros Beetle 5. Unironically, though, I'm really excited to see just what happens with Kakine's character. I would be pretty happy if he actually does end up staying as this, like... he seems to be kind of just a virtuous guy now. I really want to know more about him. I don't know. It's just with Kakine, he's a character that I constantly just want... I constantly feel like I haven't seen enough of him. I would love just a really in-depth, like, Kakine arc. And I know we have the Dark Matter manga. It was 1 volume, which I liked. I liked it. But at the same time, I'd still like a little more, you know? But yeah, the Last Order Fremia Rhinoceros Beetle 5 stuff, pretty wholesome. Pretty wholesome. That's all I have to say about it, really. The whole message around that pretty much seemed to be about the desire to protect, which I thought was pretty neato. That was what changed Kakine pretty much, was Rhinoceros Beetle 5 who became Kakine. He was overcome by his intense desire to protect Fremia and Last Order, and that was what drove him to a higher level, to new heights, you could say. I also wanted to note an interesting observation that I made about New Testament 5 in particular, was that there seemed to be this theme of revenge. So New Testament 5 ends with this confrontation between Kakine and Accelerator after, obviously, OT-15, where, you know, Accelerator almost killed Kakine. Kakine was very blatantly pursuing revenge, but then freaking, I did not see this coming, dude. Frenda showed up. Now, it wasn't actually Frenda. It was someone, like, impersonating Frenda through, like, Mugino's eye or whatever, her fake eye. And so that's kind of where I got that from, because Frenda was acting as if she was getting revenge on Mugino, who obviously killed her during the Battle Royale arc. And then there was kind of the, well, what I wrote in my notes was that it was revenge and deception, because I was also talking about Toma confronting Lavinia after she had deceived him. There were a lot of other themes that you could actually take from this arc as a whole, and I wrote down in my notes, one of the themes was questioning the meaning of being human, interpreting the feelings of the dead, and sacrificing yourself versus sacrificing others, which that was something that Toma talked about with Lavinia. He said that he wished that Lavinia would have at least sacrificed him before she sacrificed as many random innocent people as she did. And the part about, you know, the thoughts and feelings of the dead, that pretty clearly came from Accelerator in reference to the Sisters Project, and questioning the meaning of being human pretty much from Rhinoceros Beetle 5 and mostly Fräulein Kreutun, actually. And the other one that I wrote down was the desire to protect, which I pretty much already talked about with Rhinoceros Beetle 5. Yeah, I like Lavinia's character a lot. I like what she represents, this sort of the ends justify the means sort of approach that I find interesting, because there's a lot of people that genuinely do think this way, that the ends do justify the means. And I think in some instances, the ends do justify the means. But Lavinia kind of takes that to a little bit of an extreme, as she does endanger a lot of people because of her actions and, deceiving Toma and whatnot. This seems to be a common thing amongst a lot of Tuaru antagonists, is that they believe that it's okay to do immoral and unethical things for the sake of accomplishing your mission, which may be a mission involving good intent. And a lot of them honestly do have good intent. Most antagonists in the series are genuinely trying to make the world a better place, but they go about it with this really warped and distorted mindset and ideology. And they don't realize, or they ignore the fact that all of the harm that they're doing does not outweigh the supposed good ending that they think is in store. Another thing I want to add is I threw a little prediction in here. Taketsubo was considered to be one of the reasons that Rhinoceros Beetle 5 became Kakine. So I wrote in my notes that I'm throwing my prediction out there that Taketsubo will become the 8th level 5 by the end of the entire series. There you go. You heard it. You heard it from me. Remember me if that actually happens. I'm just looking at some of my screenshots, and I just screenshotted this one sentence that says Cendrillon ignored that and headed to the kitchen space. I don't know why. Moving on, there was a nice wholesome scene where Fremia and Last Order gave a big ol' hug to Fräulein Kreutun, who I think is now at this point a lolly. And you know what? That was just nice. That was just nice. I felt nice, very nice and warm from that. That was nice. And then there's kind of a nice little thing that Last Order says, basically about not judging Fräulein Kreutun for caving into her instinctual nature, even though she knows that what she was wanting to do was morally wrong, but her body was telling her she needs to freaking eat Last Order's brain, because that's a real thing. Humans have a sinful nature, and it's very difficult to ignore what your instincts tell you. Even if you know that they are immoral, because there are a lot of instinctual things about humans that are indeed immoral. But let's move on. Let's move on. This video is so long. Okay, Thor and Toma fight. You know what? I'm not going to explain the whole fight. I'm just going to say I liked that Toma lost. I thought that was subversive, because I was expecting Toma. I was fully expecting Toma to beat Thor in some extremely BS way that just seemed extremely lucky, and that did not happen. Thor won, and you know what? That made sense, and I liked it. I liked the fact that Thor won that fight. Moving on. The epilogue. The epilogues are something I find myself enjoying a lot each time, and I got the chills during New Testament 6's epilogue in particular. There was this really chilling scene where Accelerator was contemplating a lot of things about the level 6 shift project, which I had some misconceptions about. But before I talk about that, basically it was like this dark room, and he was about to go out and just do some dark side patrol, you could say, or something. He was about to go investigate, our detective boy Accelerator, right? And then Last Order showed up, but it wasn't actually Last Order. It was supposedly the entire will of it was the will of the entire Misaka network, which I thought was, I don't know, something about the way the scene was written was really chilling, and I really liked it. And it was this great message to Accelerator about the fact that he feels, like I mentioned with NT1, he feels uncomfortable when he's not involved in the dark side, and he's having a hard time realizing that everything that's happening to him, and this desire to constantly involve himself with that side of the world and that side of the city is programmed within him, and he's basically being led to continue doing this. And to get back at those people, it's better that he rejects that desire and attempts to actually live a normal, happy sort of lifestyle. Well, not happy, but relaxed. You know what I mean? Fitting in with society. So about my misconceptions of the level 6 shift project, I think I'm stupid. I don't think I'm stupid. I know I'm stupid because a lot of these things I guess forgot. So it mentioned that, I can't believe I didn't know this, but it mentions that the shift to level 6 was not actually the true purpose of the experiment. The first was to scatter the basically like 10,000 sisters to the cooperative institutions around the world in order to spread the effects of their aim diffusion fields. Okay, that makes sense, right? Then the second purpose of it was seemed to be for the Misaka network to act as a guidance device to control a massive aggregation of aim diffusion fields. Help me, I'm stupid. Someone explain it to me, please. I'm sorry. It has something to do with the Academy City invasion arc and Kazakiri Hyoka. Is it just something about basically using the Misaka clones or the Misaka network to just control aim diffusion fields so they can manipulate it in some way? Is that all that it is? Am I like trying to overcomplicate it? I don't know. Let me know. And anyways, the third purpose, it says right here that the third purpose was Iwas said that the angel-like thing Accelerator had seen in the past had been nothing more than the mold to give Iwas form. So I guess the creation of Iwas. I don't fully understand all this. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to fully understand all of this yet, but hey, it's super interesting, and I am very excited to see where this goes. I might have to go actually pick up back where I stopped with the Old Testament volumes. Okay, last thing I'm mentioning is that the 50-50 thing with Oathness, the 50-50 chance and the infinite possibilities. We actually saw an example of that, and I thought it was pretty cool. She cut, quote-unquote, Thor's arm. It wasn't actually Thor. It was all her pretending to be Thor, and it ended up in a failure because even though she did cut his arm, her arm was also severed. So that's kind of what the 50-50 thing actually looks like. Okay, actual last thing. I thought there was this really cool thing mentioned at the very beginning of the arc and the very end. It was about a person born with the power to defeat the Demon King, where the village tells him exactly what to do because he knows what his exact path in life is because there is no ambiguity to his power. But someone who doesn't know that, what their power's for, could end up going down a very different path. And I think that's pretty much talking about Imagine Breaker and Toma, because we don't know what Imagine Breaker is really about. We don't know what the intentions of it were, and we don't know what Toma can do with that power to his fullest extent, at least. Moving on, finally. New Testament 7, the Agitate Halation arc, was very close to being my favorite. I think this volume benefits so much from starting off in the most stereotypically Tuaru fashion ever. It actually starts off so generic that I'm convinced that was intended. It was generic because it was a setup we've literally seen before in the series, and it ends up being this really genius twist from Cosmic Kamichi, who's a phenomenal author. But the fact that it starts off with Tsuchi Mikado pretty much like doing the thing where like Toma's unconscious and Tsuchi Mikado sends him on this mission while he's unconscious, whatever. You know, the typical Tsuchi Mikado thing. He basically did the same thing during the British royal family arc. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is just such a standard setup for a Tuaru arc, right? And you know, it's still really fun though. There's a bit of like fan service and wacky stuff. I really enjoyed all of the Shokuho stuff. Shokuho was just amazing. How can, like, I don't know, man. I love every scene Shokuho was in. But they're sent on this whole goose chase, and then it kind of just hits at a certain point. Shokuho just simply brings up the possibility that maybe Toma should suspect the person giving him that information. And then it's so sudden. On the news or whatever, we see Tsuchi Mikado's little sister, Maika, the cute maid girl that spins on the cleaning robot thing, and she's super cute. She's dead. She's just dead. And then I just started asking questions immediately. Well, then what was Tsuchi Mikado doing? Why did he send him on this goose chase? Yeah, and then seeing Tsuchi Mikado's reaction as he saw the news, it had me convinced. This volume is such a deceptive volume and I love it. It leads you, the reader, to believe things, just like it leads the characters in the story to believe things that are just like fundamentally being misunderstood. Tsuchi Mikado, I'm gonna say right here, Tsuchi Mikado became one of my favorite characters in this arc. I would say he's probably my second favorite male character in the series, just behind, at this point, just behind Accelerator. It's so funny that I say that, because back when I was watching season 1 of the anime, when it was, my first time watching Tuaru, I did not like Tsuchi Mikado. I chose a character to hate because I guess I just wanted someone to hate. I don't know. And then especially in Angel Fall, I hated Tsuchi Mikado. I just thought he was obnoxious. And then Dai Hase made me warm up to, in season 2 and whatnot, made me warm up to Tsuchi Mikado a lot more. But, he's grown on me more and more ever since. But this volume has convinced me that Tsuchi Mikado is a fantastic character. Tsuchi Mikado represents like something that I genuinely love. And I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but he represents a type of character that I seriously love. I love characters that are goofy and wacky and silly and comedic relief on the inside, but deep down they're actually one of the most serious characters in the series. So honestly, this is one reason I love Kuriko Shirai, is because she's kind of like that. She's a comedic relief character who is actually internally very serious. But Tsuchi Mikado actually kind of takes this to another level. I'm convinced, or I started to doubt that Tsuchi Mikado was ever being an honest person when he acted the way he did up until this point, with this goofy persona that he gives off. And it makes so much sense with his backstory as a spy, that he's trained to be deceptive like this, and you start to question what the real Tsuchi Mikado was actually like. The Tsuchi Mikado in New Testament Volume 7, it feels like an entirely different character, and that's why I love it so much. He almost seems psychopathic in this volume. He is just going crazy. He's out here like kind of torturing people, threatening to torture people, like pulling out some crazy bacteria that'll kill you. This man, he plucked out a girl's eyeball. He plucked out Sherry's eyeball. He lied to this man that was dying or whatever with the toothpaste or whatever, if you remember what I'm talking about. And it's just a different side of him. He's extremely desperate, and then when he gets to his confrontation with Kaizumi, I believe his name was, I'm not gonna lie to you, this was one of the most intense moments in Tuaru for me. I thought it was outstanding, because up to this point, they'd really led me to believe that I was almost entirely convinced that Micah was actually dead. And then there's this really tense conversation between Tsuchi Mikado and Kaizumi, who he thinks is the person behind Agitate Halation, but is actually not. He's actually a person trying to destroy Agitate Halation. And Tsuchi Mikado has been led to him specifically because it's like he's a puppet on strings. And then Kaizumi, as they're talking, says that, he just randomly says like Tsuchi Mikado's the one that killed Micah. And then we find out that our whole perspective has been wrong and that we've been lied to throughout this whole volume, because Tsuchi Mikado actually faked his sister's death. But that's not why he wasn't angry because she was quote unquote dead, because she wasn't actually dead. He was angry because they had brought in his innocent sister to this, what he describes as this filthy world. This filthy world where he has to act as this double spy, and he's involved with the dark side of Academy City, and it's just terrible and borderline inescapable. And then we get a nice backstory of why he actually adopted Micah in the first place. He was a spy. He was a prodigy spy at a very young age, and he was sent on a mission to basically be a spy that lives in Academy City. And he adopted Micah as a method. This was suggested to him. He adopted Micah as a method to throw off the people monitoring him in Academy City. But he got caught. He got caught anyways. But it was interesting because it was this nice backstory about how he ended up actually learning a lot about Micah and what it meant to be a genuine person that simply desires to help other people and bring joy to other people. It was something that he had never really known in his life. It was something much more genuine than what he had originally thought. And he pretty much vowed to protect her from what he was involved with. And that's why he was so furious. And then as he's like setting Kaizumi up to look like, he looks like he's about to torture him because he was about to torture him. And then Toma shows up, and then, oh, it's absolute insanity. It's very emotional and it's very chaotic. And Tsuchimikado and Toma end up fighting, and Toma beats the mess out of him. And then Toma starts crying because there's no way he should have beaten Tsuchimikado. And oh, it was crazy. This part of the volume is one of my favorite moments in all of Tuaru. It really is. I sincerely loved this part so much. I will say, after Tsuchimikado is like knocked out and stuff, I do think the volume goes downhill a little bit, which is why I don't say it's my favorite. I think it was the final resolution of this arc that I just wasn't super satisfied with. I didn't think it was I just didn't think it was too interesting, I guess, like how it resolved. I'll quickly just talk about what I liked about this volume. I liked the absurdity of what agitate halation was, and Fremia being this sort of centerpiece for manipulating 7,500 heroes to essentially oppose each other. It was weird, but it was crazy, and I enjoyed it. And Fremia having this realization of what her role was and all of this, and then being able to see the aim thought person that Yakumi, the person who set this up, supposedly, who was also being led by a Kihara. Do you see just how many strings are attached to everything in this series? It's literally this person A is being controlled by person B, who's actually being controlled by person C, who's actually being controlled by person D. But oh no, the thing is, actually person E is in control. Person E is controlling all of them, and it's all person E's plan. It just keeps going and going. I don't know how they do it. Anyways, the Fremia scene where it looked like she was like shattering a dimension. It looks like the art was an interesting portrayal. Thought it was pretty cool. Very nice. Do I need to talk about Black Santa? I'm not going to. I'm not gonna talk about Black Santa and the extremely poorly worded illustration page. Let's not talk about Black Santa who takes away bad children. Another thing I liked that Kuroyoru actually kind of developed in this arc. When she was fighting Rensa alongside Hamazura, she was convinced that Hamazura was going to backstab her. She was entirely convinced that would happen. She was so shocked that it didn't, and I'm pretty sure this is the turning point for Kuroyoru as a character, and I'm really excited to see what she's like later on. There's a scene where Kinohara fights roaches, which is extremely gross, and I commend Kinohara for being able to do with that, because I am terrified of roaches, just period. Honestly, I would have just run away. I would have given up and I would have run away. There's this pretty awesome scene where basically all of the level 5s are present, and Aihana Etsu was mentioned. Like, someone was pretending to be Aihana Etsu. I don't know what that was all about. But that was pretty funny. Surely we're going to see Aihana Etsu at some point in this series. I don't know. Maybe maybe Aihana Etsu is the final villain. Maybe he's the puppet master. I think Aihana Etsu has to be the mastermind. I think he's controlling Aleister Crowley. I think he's controlling all the magic gods. I think Aihana Etsu is. I think that's what he does. Yeah, I'm sorry to spoil all of Tuaru for you, but yeah, that's. You know what? It's not even a theory. I'm convinced it's fact. Aihana Etsu is, he's the final boss of Tuaru. By the way, I already know the theory of who Aihana Etsu is. I'm not going to say it just in case, but I have heard that, and it's kind of funny. But yeah, all the level 5s are kind of present. Shokuho, Mika, yeah, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 are all there. Kakine shows up and fights alongside Toma. That was pretty cool, but I was a little disappointed that he got knocked out and Toma had to finish the fight. I don't know. I would like to see some like just well thought out sort of teamwork, you know? I want to see some nice teamwork fights. I forgot to mention this because I think my brain just wanted to block this out. But when Tsuchimikado plucked out Kumakawa Seiri's eyeball or whatever, I think after he won the fight, it says, with his curse complete, Tsuchimikado gave the stolen eyeball a light kiss. Okay. I'm glad I forgot about that, and I'm sad that I remembered it. Another thing that makes me question the mental health of Cosmocometry is just Fräulein Kreutun. Like, so after Yakmi was beaten, she was revived in an alley, and Fräulein Kreutun shows up, and she starts eating her. But she doesn't stop there. What she does is she leaves a little piece of her alive, just one little tiny piece of her, and she's gonna make her question her life decisions this entire time for a very long time. Fräulein Kreutun's immortal, by the way. Probably. I don't know if she's still immortal, actually. But she's gonna keep her for a very long time, and she's that one little tiny piece. She's just gonna be alive. She has to question her life decisions, and then finally, once she understands what she did wrong, she's gonna eat that last bit, and that's gonna be the end. She's gonna die, and then she will finally have the sweet release of death that she craves. I think she even gave. I think Fräulein Kreutun even gave her a review when she was eating her. She said 2 stars, not bad. It's like, it took me a second to process what she meant. She was actually, I think she was legit reviewing that meal, that human body. Oh my goodness. Cosmocometry, what are you doing? I could probably talk more about all the Rensa stuff and just the whole project and, you know, all that stuff. I'm not going to. I've been recording for so long, so right now I'm at 1 hour and 50 minutes, but I've actually been talking for a lot longer than that. So I kind of need to wrap up. I did not expect this to be 2 hours. One thing to note is that Toma is basically going to store up all those brands or whatever from what was Rensa. And I was wondering if that would ever be used later. So I had that written down in my notes. So overall, I loved New Testament 7. I would say it contained my favorite parts of New Testament so far, but overall, I would say maybe Baggage City is still my favorite. We'll see. I know that this next arc, the Oathness arc, volumes 8, 9, and 10, I believe, are the ones that everyone freaks out over, says it's like their favorite. I see so many memes about New Testament 9 specifically. I kind of already have an idea as to what happens in New Testament 9. I don't have any blatant spoilers. Like, no one has said anything concrete as to what exactly happens, right? But I've seen memes and stuff that kind of indicate something that happens. So I kind of hate the fact that that's spoiled for me. But I guess it is what it is. I don't know. I really don't know the vast majority of what happens in this arc. I just know people really like it. So yeah, the next New Testament video I make will probably only be about the Oathness arc. I don't think I'll talk about 7 volumes in that one. I'll just probably talk about that specific arc, and then I'll play it by ear from there. To give my general thoughts about what I am feeling, how I'm feeling about New Testament so far and reading this series. I mean, I've always loved Index ever since I started it. I love the entire 2-hour series. It is one of my favorite series in fiction. And I have found myself really enjoying New Testament. I think Cosmocometry is an underrated author. I think he's created something fantastic, and I don't think his work is perfect by any means. There's a lot of, I guess, just if I wanted to nitpick the living mess out of Tuaru, you know, you definitely could. If you want to nitpick this series to death and point out every single little tiny flaw or contradiction or plot hole or whatever it is that you don't like, you can rip this. You could rip this series apart if you wanted to view everything extremely pessimistically. But I think what Cosmocometry has created is fascinating. I think he's created one of the most interesting worlds in fiction. The world building of the series is phenomenal. It's objective. Let me not use that word. It's seriously outstanding what he's created. And as I'm reading this, I see that Cosmocometry, he's a risk taker. He's most definitely a risk taker. He does very weird things in these volumes that I'm not expecting at all. And it's just, he does these crazy things that I made jokes about being concerned for his mental health. Obviously I'm kidding, but he comes off as a little as a little crazy with some of the things that he writes, with Fräulein Kreutun, I guess, like committing acts of like cannibalism, right? And then Marianne turning flesh and blood people into like flesh furniture and utilities. There's weird stuff in here. And then some of the like the psychological torture scenes, and there was some scenes in New Testament 7 where I was just I had a hard time reading them, because it was like I don't do well with the torture stuff, and it's like, even if it's just like breaking fingers, I can't take it. I can't. It's kind of hard. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, like, I feel weird reading like tortured scenes like that, you know? But, you know, when I read Cosmic Commentary stuff, when I read Index, I see that this man is a risk taker, and he's willing to do absurd things for the sake of writing an entertaining story. I think he's created something huge, something grandiose, and something magical. It's certainly magical. Haha. I find myself with each volume that I read just gaining more and more respect for Cosmic Commentary as an artist, that not like an illustrationist, you know, as a writer. I consider writing to be a form of art. And you know what? I love what he's created. And if you have watched the video up to this point, you are a massive legend. I don't know why you would listen to this whole thing, but if you did, I deeply appreciate you, and I would ask that you leave a comment saying something or anything at all, because you know what, I really do love seeing comments on these videos. I always look at the comments, and they're just so well thought out a lot of the times, and you can really tell when someone watches, or I don't know, I guess gathered the attention of a few very cool people that like similar things as I do, and I really appreciate that. And just to note, I see some of you guys everywhere. Like, I watch a lot of Tuaru videos and stuff, and I see the same guys, you know, the same people commenting on my channel, commenting on all these other channels that I watch. And yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate the comments. Even if you don't watch the full video, that's completely fine. I don't expect people to watch the full video. I really don't. But I deeply appreciate those that do, because that's pretty epic. But yeah, I am gonna have to wrap it up here. I think I love Index, and if you have any random questions you want to ask me that maybe something I didn't talk about, feel free to ask me. Feel free to say literally anything that's on your mind. I'll see you when I finish the Oath in this arc. So in the meantime, have a nice day, night, week, month, year, decade, life.